We are live. Who is this person? Is this Heather's evil twin? No, it's Heather.
I'm back. Back in black.
She's back in black. Hurrah, hurrah, hurrah.
Got bored.
Been,
Very bored with the grey.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. You were experimenting, weren't you?
It was a bit too soon.
You peaked too soon.
Yeah. Peak hair. I haven't got enough white hair yet. And it started to look grey. And I don't suit grey. It looked great under lights when it would really shine. But generally, I just felt, no, not me.
Yeah.
Not yet.
You. No. Definitely not. But you're black. You're back. Blah.
I am black.
Yes.
I'm black.
So now Heather's evil twin. I always thought that was me.
Oh, is it?
Hi, Redwing. Hi, how are you this evening? I hope you're well. So we're full of the joys of the summer because we've been on our summer hollybobs, haven't we?
We did. Wonderful it was.
Oh, my God. So we did a tour of Essex, and I've written down a sort of brief itinerary just to remember what we did on what particular day. And when we were doing our tour, we made use of this particular book. Is that showing up?
Oh, yes, it is. Yeah.
There we go. Essex Witches by a fella. Is it showing?
Someone Brown.
That is Peter C. Brown. And this book is absolutely marvellous. So if you want to do a repeat of what we've done, I thoroughly recommend it because it goes into all sorts of details and it names every single person that was ever accused of witchcraft and what their outcome was of the trials, if they went to trial. And some, of course, didn't actually get as far as trial. But it mentions everybody and it lists all the different towns that have got anything to do with witchcraft at all. And so that was kind of our map almost, wasn't it? The only thing that it does lack is a map. That would be really useful.
Annoyingly, a good map of the area, surprisingly hard to find because everyone uses SatNav. And SatNav doesn't give you a big enough picture. So you can say, we're here, and if we want to go there, let's go via here, and here are the places along the way. It doesn't do it.
No,
so,
it doesn't.
But we managed.
Yeah. So, yes. So if the publishers are ever listening to this, for Essex Witches by Peter C. Brown, please, when you reprint it, can you put a map in it? Please.
A modern map.
Modern map. That'd be really helpful. Thank you very much. But it was brilliant, wasn't it? So where did we, hi Hans, where did we start off with? It was Canewdon, wasn't it, we started off with?
It was. Somewhere I'd never heard of.
No, ditto. And that was fascinating, wasn't it? So we went and found the church, which was all but deserted, really, wasn't it? Apart from exploded pigeons. There seemed to be a bit of a thing about exploded pigeons where we went, didn't there?
Yeah, everywhere you looked.
Yeah, well, it was bits of feathers all over the place. But that was interesting, wasn't it, going to the church? And it's reputedly haunted. And not only is it haunted, it's haunted by witches.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing is that a friend of mine, her grandfather, or friend of ours, I should say, her grandfather great-grandfather used to be the caretaker and lived in the little cottage that's next door to the church, which is one of those lovely wonky cottages that I adore so much. And I think he was the longest tenant that's been there, because most people that have been there since him haven't been keen on the activity, I think is the best way of putting it.
Yeah, didn't like the neighbours.
No. Yes, exactly. The see-through ones. No, they weren't keen on the see-through neighbours at all. So, yes. But it was interesting going there, and it was a bit ramshackle, wasn't it? The churchyard had lots and lots of broken graves and just, I don't know, it was just a bit ramshackle, really.
It looked very unloved, and we didn't get a lot of feels when we were there. It wasn't a nasty feeling, but there wasn't a good feeling either. It was just very unloved.
Yeah, it really was, wasn't it? We sort of traipsed around the outside, and it was locked up, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And we sort of traipsed around the outside and inspected bits of feather, like you do. But actually, that was it. But the whole place was pretty deserted, actually, wasn't it? It was a bit strange.
It didn't have any heart to the place. There was no community sense or a village sense. It was just simply some houses, bit of street, and the church.
Yeah, which was it was all, that was down at one end, wasn't it? And then there was the shop at the other end.
The shop,
very useful shop. We bought hummus in there, didn't we? And then we scoffed it outside on
we were hungry.
the road.
Finding food, you'd never think it'd be a challenge in England, but it is.
Yes, exactly. Where did we go to after there? Oh, we went to Malden, didn't we?
Yes. Now, we liked Malden.
Oh, Malden was just lovely. But explain about the best bit, Heather, of Malden.
Wasn't Malden via Chelmsford?
No.
No.
So we went to Malden and we found the car park and we walked through that little back alley. And we kind of like trundled up and down a little bit. And then we found a very, very old coaching inn, didn't we?
We did. I kind of walked past this sort of wooden door and went, whoa. And we went in there and literally the hairs on the back of my neck went up. And it was like, whoa, this has got some lovely feels. We just stood there for a while, didn't we?
Yeah. It was almost like a step back in time. You could all but feel the like coach and horses rushing past you while you stood in that archway, couldn't you?
Very, very atmospheric.
It really was. It had sort of a cobbled area underneath the archway and into the little courtyard and so on, didn't it? And it was just oh God, you could really, I don't know, it was just, you could literally feel you know, the last 400 or 500 years. It was amazing, really, wasn't it?
And it was a bit like a kind of a whoosh of right in your face as well. The minute we
really was
off the street, it was extraordinary. It was like, wow, we stood there and went, whoa.
Oh, yeah.
God knows what anyone walking past would have thought, but, you know, like, ooh, like this.
Yeah, strange women. It was lovely. But the church had really something strange in it because the church was faced onto the high street, so you couldn't really miss it.
Yeah.
And it had this tiny, weeny outside bell on the steeple. It was like they built the steeple and then thought, crap, weren't we supposed to put something in there?
That's what it looked like. Apparently not, because we've seen it in other places where plainly there is meant to be a bell outside. Yeah. But it did look kind of like they'd forgotten something.
Yeah, it really was. It's like, there we go. That's the last roof tile. We've forgotten something, Bob. I was getting that nagging feeling.
Where's that going to go? That big thing on the floor. Oops.
Have you got a spare bit of 8x4? Yeah.
It was, wasn't it?
And a couple of nails, please. So, and then we went and found a little tea room, didn't we? Which was all a bit elderly and wonky, like us, really. Elderly and wonky.
Speak for yourself.
But yeah, it was lovely. And we went and had a drink in there, didn't we? And it was, I'll tell you what it reminded me of. It reminded me of Sally Lunn's tea shop in Bath.
Yeah, though it had that real feel, didn't it? It was lovely and charming.
Cool. Yeah, it was actually really nice. So so we liked Malden, didn't we? That was very nice. I liked that a lot. And then we tried to go to Chelmsford.
Well, we kind of thought we should go to Chelmsford because of what happened there, and it was an important centre, and we did try, didn't we?
We did, and we got as far as a car park.
Yeah.
You managed to actually get out the van, didn't you?
Very briefly, but I got back in quite swiftly.
I never even took my seatbelt off. And it was just, the feel of it was just,
oppressive.
It was really oppressive, and no, absolutely. And it was just drive. And she's still going, I don't know where I'm going. And I was like, just drive.
The big city is like, I have no idea what we're doing. Yeah. But we just had to get out. We're just like, we do not want to be here. Yeah. It's an unpleasant feel.
It was awful, wasn't it? It was just like desperation to leave. It was really strange.
We couldn't get out there fast enough. Yeah.
And it's a pity, really, because obviously Chelmsford's an old town, and you know, it's got lots and lots of history, you know, with the assizes and so on. And so really and truly, it was a place that we really should have visited, but we just couldn't stay, could we? It was just all a bit much. And yeah, and so we left very, very swiftly. We arrived quite swiftly and left even quicker, didn't we?
We did. Yeah. Even the delights of Tesco's couldn't tempt us.
No, it couldn't.
Like, oh no, let's just go.
Yeah. Well, just drive. So yeah. So the first evening, that was interesting, wasn't it? We went and found a pub car park.
Indeed, we had our park up at Britstop Park car park, parked up for the evening.
But unfortunately, the roadwork people decided tonight's the night, boys.
Yeah, they were doing major roadworks and they kicked off just around the time we were thinking of going to bed. Like, oh,
actually, before we went there, we went to another little village, didn't we? Just beyond that, they had the broken gravestone and the dead tree with all the ribbons on it. Do you remember?
Oh yes, that was very strange. But the tree with all the ribbons on it was very, very dead, which I found quite worrying.
Yeah,
really.
It was actually. It really was, and you know, it wasn't the ribbons that had killed it off.
No.
It was right next to a very, very broken pile of what had originally, I think, been one gravestone that had got broken up and then just piled up rather than being put back as it should have been. But that tree had absolutely had it, hadn't it? But the story goes for that particular village, and I can't remember the name of it. But the story goes that the local witch that was tried and executed was buried outside the churchyard, wasn't she?
Yeah, because we couldn't see where that could be. It must have been a long way away.
Yeah, but I mean, it was sort of said buried outside, and of course, when it says buried outside, you tend to assume that it's going to be just outside, and it may well have been, but we couldn't see that.
We tried to find.
So we had a good old, you know, a real good old hunt about, didn't we, trying to find it? But if it was that one, and that's, you know, because what happened was, while it was on the outside of the churchyard and undisturbed, it was fine. But in 1944, some of the Air Corps turned up and it got broken, didn't it? And so it kind of got relocated, which is why I think people had assumed that this, you know, big pile of broken gravestones
might be her.
Might well be her, which is why they've been. I've got a little fly in here, is annoying. So yeah, I think people had assumed that it was, rightly or wrongly, I don't know, had assumed that it was her, and that's hence the ribbons, we think. But yeah, so that was sad, really. And she was she wasn't part of the main witchcraft trials, was she? But wasn't she the one that was 15 and got herself pregnant early? But of course, that was witchcraft, wasn't it?
Yeah, they just added 2 and 2 and made 27. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. As they did with most, we discovered.
Yeah.
Which we knew already, but we just really reinforced it, didn't it? That, you know,
it's so sad. Yeah.
So sad. Really, it was. So the interesting thing was that while Heather was driving, I had the book, and we didn't stop at every single town because it's about 240 towns that are associated with witchcraft in Essex. I think it's 244. And clearly we couldn't stop in 3 days. We couldn't stop at all the towns and villages that are mentioned in the book. So if we were driving and we saw a sign for one, you know, sort of coming off the road that we were on and heading for somewhere different, then I was reading out what came up for that particular town or village too. So yeah, so although we didn't really visit all of them, we did a hefty chunk. We learnt about a hefty chunk, even if though we didn't personally visit and pay respects or go and have a look or whatever, didn't we? So yeah,
it was amazing. Yeah. Really helped because, you know, you had the feel as you came somewhere and you didn't know if it was going to be big or small or. But as you went through it, you're like, oh, was that it?
Yeah, where's it gone? Sneezed and you missed it. Yeah.
Like, I think that was.
Yeah, head screwed on back to front. The sign behind me says. Oh dear. So so our first evening was basically in a pub car park with roadworks, which was a bit unfortunate, but
Yeah, nice pub, decent food.
It was, decent food and nice people, wasn't it? It was just unfortunate that they chose to do the roadworks that particular evening, but
and had lights on as well. It was God, it wasn't just digging up a bit, it was a complete project, wasn't it?
It really was, wasn't it? But it's just one of those things, wasn't it? So day 2, where did we head to on day 2? Was that when we had the joys of Tiptree?
I'm trying to remember.
Yes, it was. It was.
Yes. Yeah, Tiptree. The smell of jam.
Wow. So Tiptree was a bit unusual, wasn't it? A rather unexpected,
weird
presentation.
Not in a good way. Just very odd.
Yeah, it was strange. And it was a Wednesday and most places were closed. Half-day closing. Even the cafes were half-day.
All the places you'd quite like to be open.
Yeah, especially as we didn't exactly get there late. We sort of arrived at sort of 1. And we just sort of, were wandering around trying to find somewhere to get a cup of coffee and a bite to eat. But even the cafes were closed. It said on Wednesdays, shut at 2. But even they'd shut by 1:20, hadn't they? 1:30.
Everything was shut apart from a very strange charity shop.
And Tesco's.
That was quite peculiar in its own way.
Yeah, even Tesco's was a bit odd, wasn't it? But the jam factory and the museum was open, but it had a lot of visitors, didn't it?
Yeah, there were sort of coach parties pulling up.
Yeah,
there were people queuing to go in. I thought, really, you can buy Tiptree jam basically, in any major supermarket. So, but the smell of it was the best thing.
Yeah, it was nice actually, wasn't it? It was very, very sweet and sickly smell, but I quite liked it.
It was good in its own way. But to go around and see how jam's made. I know how jam's made. You know how jam's made. You made it.
Yeah. Lots of it.
But, it kept a lot of people amused. But for somewhere that's like a bit of a tourist town, I was very surprised at just how crap the rest of the town was.
Yeah, exactly. It was as much crap as strange, really, wasn't it? And
just nothing happening. No atmosphere. No attraction. No charm. No visible charm.
Yeah, it was just strange, really. But we'd gone there specifically because of the promise of tea rooms, actually.
We thought, yes.
And they did have tea rooms. But even their tea room was a bit strange, wasn't it? Because it said, secret garden. Well, I love a secret garden. I don't know about you. But the word secret garden just conjure up all sorts of childhood wonder. So we peered over the fence, didn't we?
We did.
And there was this scaffolding structure with canvas over the top that had obliterated all the grass, and so it sort of left mud, dry soil underneath.
Yeah.
Presumably that was what their necessities were for COVID and so on, which is fair enough. But it was too big for the space, which meant that no light got through. And so it was a kind of scaffolded square, really, wasn't it? So
pretty much.
Yeah, so that was actually the gardens on the outside were quite pretty though, weren't they?
They were well maintained, yes.
Yeah, they were. Yeah. So so Tiptree required another pot of hummus, and we ate that in the car park this time instead of the road.
We did well with hummus. Good job, we both like it, really. More hummus was eaten.
Cool. But then we headed off to Mistley, didn't we?
We did.
We did. And Mistley. Would you like to explain the water feature?
Okay. So we rock up outside, well, finding somewhere to park, and it's all on like an estuary, so you can see the water. As you rock up, you are met with what looks like a kid's round swimming pool with a very large, ugly and not tremendously well-crafted swan in the middle of it, with water spurting out of its gob.
And the child's paddling pool is made from?
Concrete, of course. What else?
And the swan is made from?
Concrete, I'm guessing.
I think that was
plastic. I think it was plastic. It was not plastic fantastic. It was pretty grim. and it looked a little unlow.
And it needed a bit of weeding, didn't it? So it was
sort of fenced in as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
In case of escaped swan. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether it's to keep the swan in or to keep the people that are a bit drunk out. I'm not.
Well, because the pub's opposite, obviously, where we enjoyed.
It's slightly down a hill too, isn't it? So maybe people have a tendency to roll down the hill and land in the pond. Who knows?
Possibly. It was a very nice place to sit, though, in the late afternoon.
It was actually.
Well, go by.
Yeah, it was actually. So the history of that particular place is that the Mistley Thorn Hotel, which is literally opposite this strange water feature, the Mistley Thorn Hotel is where the start of the witch trials really began, because Matthew Hopkins, Witchfinder General, self-appointed Witchfinder General,
indeed,
overheard two women plotting in the pub when he went in. And he decided that, what they were plotting was diabolical and must therefore be witchcraft. And that's how he started his assault. But what we found out afterwards, actually, not while we were there, but later on, through reading other snippets in this book, was that actually he went on to buy that pub in later years with his inheritance money, because his father was a Puritan preacher or something, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So obviously he was moneyed and so on. And so, yeah, with his inheritance, he actually bought that pub. And they have a plaque on the outside. And it sort of mentions bits and bobs of the witch trials, and obviously mentions Matthew Hopkins and so on. But it doesn't say that he later on owned the pub. So, yeah. And he was born just up the road from there, in a place called Manningtree, which we'll come to. But, yeah, it was overwhelmingly cheesy. They had a lot of burnt cheese going on. And I rather like
it, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. But it was... yeah, and a family arrived, didn't they, with their suitcases, and I think this is reputedly haunted too. And it was quite a sort of a diverse family, in that the age ranges of the children was quite wide, wasn't it?
They had a sulky teenager and then two much younger ones, and they all kind of bounced into the hotel thinking they might have a livelier night than they were anticipating.
Yeah. Something to entertain the teenager, if nothing else.
Indeed.
So, yeah, but it was interesting watching the world go past, sort of in between us and the swan. So that was interesting and obviously very important. And from there on, we went to go and see a very, very special tree.
Yes, we did. We went and saw Old Knobbly.
Old Knobbly, yeah, which is completely without fanfare, isn't it? It's interesting, really, because on my sat nav it came up without being asked, and it came up on several occasions before we went away, and we thought, oh, there's going to be a brown sign to it, or a wooden etched sign for it, or something like that. None of the above. And we ended up going down this little path and kind of felt that maybe we were going in the wrong direction, but didn't really know where we were supposed to be going. And there were two young lads on mopeds, weren't there?
Dirt bike things. Yeah,
dirt bike things. And we sort of asked them the way, and they're like, "Oh yeah, it's through there." Like, oh, okay.
So we forest into a forest.
Yeah, into the forest.
Any one of these.
Thank you very much. So we sort of potted in. And we came across this whopper of an oak, didn't we?
Yeah.
Which had a bench opposite with a chap sitting there reading and contemplating on stuff. And we thought, well, this is absolutely vast. It's got to be this one. And Heather's saying, it can't be this one. It's got no hole in it.
Exactly.
Yeah, it can't be this one. We're like,
nowhere to hide.
Yeah, nowhere to hide. Because
the branches weren't low enough.
No, exactly. And the legend is that Old Knobbly, when the witches were being literally chased by the villagers or arm of the law, such as it was, that they'd run into the forest and they would hide inside the trunk of Old Knobley that's, sort of got a hollow part of its trunk, but also up in the branches because it's got an incredibly low trunk and very low branches, but a very, very wide one. Is it something like 36 feet diameter or something, isn't it? Or is it?
I don't think it's quite that, but it is certainly
it's absolutely
imposing.
Yeah. So anyway, we decided that this oak tree, huge as it was, wasn't the one. So we kind of trundled through and trundled through and trundled through, and then you saw it, didn't you?
Yeah, we were at the bottom. We were kind of in the valley at the bottom, and I looked up there. I was like, "That's it. It feels like it. That's definitely it." It was more by feel than by anything particularly visual. At that point, it's like, I think it's there.
Yeah. So we trundled up the hill. I burst into tears. We held hands.
You weren't sure about going up there, and I was like, "Come on."
But it was, I wanted to go, but the sadness from it, oh my God. It was so sad, wasn't it? It really was.
It was very, it carries all of everything in it.
It really does. And it was, it was just, sad on a soul level, wasn't it? It was just, oh God. Yeah. And the outside of it's strange, isn't it? The outside almost looks like lava, doesn't it? Molten lava.
It is, as the name says, incredibly knobbly, and everything's like fused into each other, and you can see faces in it, and the more you look at it, the more you see in it, and you can see the center where there obviously was a bigger hole, but it's been a bit burnt out because I think people have mistreated it because it's not protected in any way. It's in a public place, and there's
it's got no fence or anything around it, has it? No preservation or anything to stop it from being attacked by local people that come and do horrible things to the tree.
People have had obviously tried to have bonfires around it and things like that.
Yeah, or been inside it and lit fires to keep warm and all that kind of jazz. So it was but it's very, very low, isn't it? It's something like 11 or 12 feet trunk, but it's so wide. It's massive, this thing, absolutely enormous.
The branches are literally sort of about 5 feet off the ground, whereas normally with an oak tree you get a lot of trunk, and then but maybe because it's so old it's kind of gone in on itself.
Yeah, maybe. Don't know.
Very unusual.
It's called Old Knobley in the 1500s, so God knows how old it is.
Very old Knobley now.
Yeah, very, very old Knobley.
It was I'm really glad we saw it.
Yeah.
And we were having a bit of a thing of trying to find it in the first place, and it was getting a little bit dark. It was like, could be lost, and those woods would be easy to get lost in because we nearly did.
Yeah, we did nearly get lost, didn't we? Yeah.
Very much so, yeah. And it's just very atmospheric, and I wouldn't say a particularly easy place to be. I found it's beautiful forest, but that actual tree, it's just the level of sadness that emanated from it. I found it really quite difficult, difficult. But I'm really glad that we made the effort to go and find it, because it was an effort to go and find it. It wasn't just sort of in a clearing, oh look, there you go. You had to really go. I had to hunt quite a long way through, actually, wasn't it? And as I say, there was no signposts or anything like that. So it was tricky to find, but worth the effort. Absolutely worth the effort. It really was. And it was almost like paying respects, not just to the tree for trying to help, if you like, but those that had tried to use it, and obviously have been found and stuff. So it was rather sad. So from there we went to Manningtree, and Manningtree is where Matthew Hopkins grew up, basically, and he kind of, Mistley and Manningtree are very, very close together. It's only a mile or two apart, isn't it? They pretty much run into each other.
They do. And it's just sort of the road that goes along the estuary there, isn't it? But that was a bit more of a lively little village, whereas Mistley was just a one-hit wonder, really, wasn't it? Pretty actually, but it was a bit of a one-hit wonder. But it's a bit more of a going concern, isn't it, in Manningtree? And they've got a few pubs and some restaurants and some shops and quite nice
It's got a lovely feel. I mean, yeah, it has. It's got you can feel the history, but it doesn't have a nasty feel about the place. It has a lot of charm, beautiful buildings, just a nice little village, really, of a decent sized, very small town.
Yeah, but what it does have a very small one of is
the smallest village green in the world.
Yes. And when you consider that on the village green, they used to do like pillorying and witch dunking and all kinds of other bits and pieces, the fact that it's not much bigger than a traffic island is a bit of a shock. And it's not, because we were wondering if maybe, the road had made a difference for it being as small as it is, widening the roads or people have said to me, maybe it was widening the roads made the village green smaller. No, the roads are tiny. Where they were, and it's all the old houses that were there, 500 years ago. They're still there, and so it's no smaller than it would have been. It's absolutely tiny, isn't it?
Very small indeed, with a couple of very small trees on it. On a bench, which we enjoyed, and neighbourhood cat, which was much appreciated.
Oh yes, he came to see us, didn't he? He was rather sweet, wasn't he?
Maximus Minipus.
He was Maximus Minipus, definitely. Have you got Maximus there?
My cat is Maximus Furball, and he's huge. But this other cat looked like almost exactly like my cat.
A replica of yours, wasn't he?
As he was tiny and just as friendly.
Yeah. So, he really was. But he was sitting on a pillar on a wall opposite, I don't know, 30, 40 yards away. And I saw him and did the whole, and he was just like, oh, okay. And over he came.
I was like, oh, you're friendly.
Trotted over and made a right fuss. We were there with him for a good 10 minutes, weren't we?
Oh, and some,
maybe 20 actually. It was a long time. He was very, very friendly.
Because it was outside the pub that we did go in.
Yeah, and that was strange, wasn't it? But the green, and not only that, but the green's also on a slant, isn't it? It's
on a hill, and it's kind of sort of teardrop shaped and tiny.
Yeah.
You felt like you were sitting in the middle of a roundabout, really.
Yeah, it does actually. There's a lot of roundabouts I know that are much bigger than that.
Yeah. I think we went through most of them. I've never seen so many bloody roundabouts. Essex likes its roundabouts.
You don't so much drive in Essex as walk around it, don't you?
Yes, indeed. Had a whale of a time.
So and then we went in the pub. Now the Red Lion pub has got some history to it, which actually I can't remember. I ought to look it up, but I can't remember the history of the Red Lion pub, and I couldn't remember the history of it when I was there. But you said, oh, well, I'll go to the bar, you go and find a seat. So I went trotting off to find a seat and found this really snuggly, cosy little nook and sat down and had the distinct feeling that I just sat on somebody's lap. It's like, oh, no, I'll stay here, beg pardon. Came back out again.
Because I took one look at it and thought, oh, no, I don't fancy that. And I couldn't have pinpointed why. It was just like,
you also said that you thought that somebody was in there, didn't you? And I said, oh, no, they weren't. But then when I did sit down,
when I walked in, it's at that corner of your eye thing. I thought, oh, no, that's occupied.
Yeah, exactly. But you had the distinct impression when you go in that you've literally just sat down on somebody's lap that's mid-conversation. It's like, oh, I'm so sorry. So that was a little bit odd. To be honest, it was a little bit strange. So yes, indeed. So we had a quick bevy in there, didn't we? Just trying to find anything about the pub, and actually I can't find it. Manningtree, there's lots. So there were lots and lots and lots of accused people in Manningtree, and obviously it was his hometown, so he was going to make a meal of it, So but I can't find the bit that I want about the Red Lion.
Yeah, because I think you said to me later when we did look it up, because we hadn't seen this bit beforehand, because it was in the back of the book, not the front. That I think that pub they did use, they might have used that back bit for their meetings
Oh yes.
Yeah, I think as soon as you made me turn around, I thought that's probably why I didn't want to go down there then.
Yeah, quite possibly. Yeah, yeah. So anyway, so yeah, so that was Manningtree. So then we had we were booked to go to a pub called the Bricklayers Arms, weren't we? And Heather said to me,
Indeed.
"It's all right," she said. "They have live music, but only on the first Tuesday of the month, and it's folk music, so we'll be all right. It's not the Tuesday, and
Wednesday, not the
it's not
first one.
Tuesday, and it's not
All right.
first of the month. We'll be all right." So we turn up on a Wednesday, mid-month. What do we hear? Ding 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 ding.
Oh dear God!
And I
Yes,
swear, I don't think any member of that band was under 18.
I
But
felt very underage. I mean,
yeah, yeah,
it was like,
they were
oh, I've come in the wrong place.
yeah, they were really good though. Actually, to be fair,
They
they
were.
were good. It's
Yeah.
not particularly my style of music.
Me
It was sort
neither.
of bluegrass, stroke. What would you call it?
I don't know, but it all sounded a bit the same to me after a
It was
while.
a little bit samey because and the landlady was very friendly. She came and sat with us and chatted for a few times, didn't she? And
Yeah,
she
she was
was,
very friendly. Yes,
yeah, she was
relieved
also
to see new
probably,
faces. I think.
yeah, yeah. And you, oh, not seeing you in these parts, yeah.
Oh,
But she was really, really nice. And she was an older lady too, wasn't she? And yeah, and it was the first time apparently this band had ever been there, and yeah, so we got the benefit.
it is indeed.
It was very bizarre, and it's bright yellow. This pub, isn't it? Inside
Absolutely.
and out. Inside and out. It's like a little sunbeam.
Yes, I mean, even going into the loos, too much detail here, but it had a lovely sunny yellow colour. But I thought the pink curtains they put up just, oh, my eyes.
It contracted slightly, didn't it? It was a little bit much.
That jarred.
Yeah, it was a little bit much, yeah, to be fair. But really nice, friendly people, and the music. It wasn't bad music. It just wasn't particularly our thing, was it?
Well, they
And
made you a very nice vegan meal as well.
they do, yeah, very nice food. So yeah, so that highly recommended actually. So yes, so that was interesting, but it got
That was
to
Little
10.
Bentley. That was
Little
Little
Bentley.
Bentley.
Little Bentley, that was it, Little Bentley. But yeah, so we decided by about 10:15 that enough was enough with the dig-a-ding music, wasn't it? So
Yeah,
we
we
went
retreated
down-
to the van for a glass of wine.
yeah, so we retreated to the van and made our way through an entire bottle, I believe.
Well, we ended up chatting, didn't we? As we do.
Indeed. So yeah, so that was that. And then Thursday, where did we go Thursday? Oh yes, we went back to Manningtree for brunch.
We did. Yeah, we like Manningtree so much it was worth another visit.
It was actually, yeah, and it was interesting because there were some bits that we didn't get to see, and we'd spotted this another one of these sort of coaching in archways, and through that you could see through into the estuary, couldn't you? And it was a lovely view, and it had lots of tables and things, and it's like, oh, let's go back there for brunch.
That'd be a nice place for brunch.
Yeah, so that was really nice. And then from there we went to St Osyth, which Heather can't say with her teeth in, can you?
I can't, and especially not now, no. St Osyth.
St Osyth. And the reason that we went there was because there was a building which has since been converted, that up until 1912 was a prison, and it was called the Cage. And of course, various people have been incarcerated in there, awaiting trial and so on. But I think that the strangest thing about that was that so we arrived and we found it, and had a bit of a trot to find it, didn't we? But we found it, and it's got one of these very, very wide and very low doorways. So Heather's on one side of the doorway, and I'm on the other side of the doorway. And we're sort of like, getting the feels from the lintel, like you do. And this young girl turned up. She was early teens, would you say?
I think she was older than she looked. Actually, I think she was late teens. But
do you?
But yeah, she was fascinated by it all. And
yeah, she was. But I reckon that it probably for her would be something that she would talk about literally and remember forever, because she's turned up at this prison. She's come specific because she's like, oh, you're here to see this place as well. And as she's turned up, and her dad's dropped her off in the car, and she's got out the car. She's got one witch on one side of the doorway and one witch on the other side of the doorway, holding the lintel, feeling the feels, going, well, actually, it's not just about the satanic goat that you mentioned. It's all about the witch trials. And we gave her a small history lesson.
She was schooled. Nice.
And I reckon that will stay with her forever.
I think it probably will. Maybe she'll think twice about what she reads on Facebook.
Maybe. You never know, yeah. We did get to see the picture of the satanic goat, didn't we?
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway.
but this building's been converted into 2 semi-detached houses, hasn't it? And one seems to have fared better than the other one. So one side of it seems to be happily resided in, and the side that's got the door with the feels has had a multitude of owners, hasn't it?
Yeah, because when we peered in, you could see the old you could see that it wasn't a very old building. It wasn't obvious. There was nothing about it that looked jail-like, but there was someone had put a mattress, stacked a mattress. There was a fridge freezer in there. They obviously were thinking about moving in and maybe change their minds.
Yeah, but apparently, according to this young girl, she was saying that it's changed hands a lot and so on. And I thought, I bet it has.
I wouldn't.
No, exactly. No, it didn't appeal to me. So that was pretty much it, really. There's lots of history at St Osyth, lots and lots of people. I think it's one of, if not the most, what's the word I'm looking for? Struck by the witch trials. If not the most struck, then one of the most struck by the witch trials. But actually, after we'd been around the little town or village, and somebody's got lots of, very, very pink, very wonky houses, hasn't it?
Oh, beautiful, really.
Absolutely lovely. But then we discovered it had a beach. So we went trotting down to the beach, didn't we? And
we drove to the beach because it was quite a way. But that was the other bit of that place.
That place. So that was nice, actually. So we had a bit of a paddle in the sea, didn't we? And
bit of beach combing.
Sorry?
A bit of beach combing.
We did do some beach combing. It was rather nice, actually, to sort of just sitting on the beach and looking at the stones. And then we played, there's a bit of seaweed there. Can I hit it with a stone? Oh, my God, yes, I can. So that was fun.
We can amuse ourselves, we're quite easily pleased.
Throwing stones at a bit of seaweed.
We did decide to give the pub a miss because on that beachfront, it was actually kind of wall-to-wall mobile home type static caravan things, and it was not somewhere we felt particularly comfortable hanging around.
No, because there were so many people and so many families, wasn't it? It was like, no, maybe not. So, yeah. But we drove from there and we went to our final evening stop off, which turned out to be an absolute touch, didn't it?
It did.
Oh, God. So when we were in St Osyth, we'd seen 2 hares, haven't we? We'd seen one big statue in the pub when we were having a coffee, and then we saw another one in the charity shop, and it was like
goldy one,
it was like bronzy coloured ones. And we finally found the farmyard, which took a bit of finding, but we finally found it.
It did. Their signpost was down, so it really was quite stressful by that point.
Yeah, it was a bit tricky. But anyway, we found it, and the farmer turned up 10 minutes after we arrived, and he turned up on his tractor with bales and
Bill.
Yeah. And he said, oh, well, you might as well park around the back of the hay barn. And he said, there's some nice walks. You can go over the fields there with the cows, or you can go over those fields over there with the cows. Or you can go into that field there where the cows are fenced off a bit and go and see the monument. It's like, well, better be the monument then. So we disappeared, didn't we? And we went and parked up around the back of the hay barn, which was really piled high with hay, wasn't it? It must have been, 40 foot easily of hay. Easily.
Wall of hay.
It literally was a wall of hay, but sort of like a seat, one bale high at the very bottom.
The biggest bales you've ever seen.
They were huge, weren't they? So we went and decided that we'd go and have a look at this, and it's twilight now, getting to be twilight. So we decided that we'd go traipsing through the field and go and have a look at this whopping great statue, monument thing. And we were couple of paces into the field, and then suddenly there was movement 2 feet in front of us, and it was the third hare of the day, a real one.
And he just stepped on it. It was,
yeah,
I think he was more surprised
literally,
on me. But,
he was one pace away, one more pace, and as you were about to put your foot down, he popped out, didn't he? And then shot off, nice and high with his ears up and the black tips on his ears. And it's like, wow, now we need to take notice of hare.
Indeed.
What's hare to say to us? So that was really something, wasn't it? It was lovely. So then we went to see the monument, which was a bit strange.
Whacking fuck off monument.
It's enormous, isn't it? Pardon you. It's absolutely huge. Absolutely
in the middle of a random field. Yeah. It's just enormous.
It's this massive great thing in the middle of a field with a few cows milling about. But it was put up in memory of a chap that used to own the land, and his family put it up when he died. So it wasn't like a lot of these follies from this. It was in the 1700s, wasn't it? And it wasn't like a lot of these follies that people at that time seemed to poke their own chests out and say, "Look how amazing I am! I've built this phallic symbol. Look." But his family did it for him. And
it was like Nelson's bloody column. It was enormous.
It really was. Yeah, and it had this big sort of cup thing on the top, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
It was
very odd.
It was weird. It was worth a trip, and it was worth going into the field just to see the hare. Actually, wasn't it? And and then we had the most lovely evening. We had we sat on the hay bales. We decided that we'd sit in there instead of sitting in the van. And we were treated to an aerial display, weren't we?
Bats. Beautiful bats.
And
wheeling around. They obviously lived in the top of the barn or were roosting, and they were just dancing around us for ages. And then the sky cleared and the moon came out.
And the whole thing came out. Oh, my God. It was perfect, wasn't it? It really was. That was my favourite evening, actually. I loved it.
And it was fairly warm. It was really quiet. We just sat there and enjoyed the evening, didn't we?
Yeah, it was lovely. It was definitely my favourite evening. I really, really enjoyed that. It was lovely. And, the bats were just, such a treat. It's unusual to see so many and for such a long time too. I mean, sometimes you'll be out and about and you might see, a handful of them for a minute or two or a couple of minutes or 5 minutes if you're lucky. But they were around for over an hour, weren't they?
Oh, yeah.
Well over an hour. And it was just, they were in and they were out. They were out and they were in. And it was, I loved it, actually. It was really, really nice. So, so that was Thursday. And then Friday, which was home day, we went into Colchester. And, of course, Colchester, very, very important, like Chelmsford, for the assizes. And we went off to the castle. But we didn't feel the need to go around the castle or down into the dungeons or whatever, did we? So we went in, but just sort of like looked in the doorway, basically, didn't we?
Well, they had quite a big sort of entrance way, and the well was quite atmospheric that you could look down. Yeah. And I know because obviously the castle was built on top of Roman stuff, and that's what was in the basement, if you like. But I think they'd had flooding in their basement. And so I don't think we would have been able to actually go to the old bit anyway, because I could see sandbags and stuff. Just
it was a lot of sandbags, wasn't it?
Yeah. But the place had obviously been rebuilt and remodeled and done up beyond the nines for the sake of the the tourists. But that weird thing was, when you went in, there was a whole sort of alcove dedicated to a young Quaker chap who was persecuted for his beliefs, and yet no mention of witches or people accused of being witches, and there were many of those, over 200. But outside there was a small, modest, grey little plaque on the ground.
Yeah,
it didn't name them. It was terribly sad. We went and sat by it for a while because it seemed such a tiny thing compared to the big fanfare that the chap had got. It just seems, well, okay, there's something there, but it's a bit
Yeah, it just didn't
not
seem to quite cut the mustard, did it? It was just like
enough.
it needed to be more. There was no names, no, as you said, no names, and it was a bit sad, really. It's like, they've they've put a nod to it, they've tried, but for the sake of another square meter of marble, they could have put all the
Yeah.
names on it. They really could, just for another square meter of marble and a square meter less of grass, because it's not upright, is it? It's actually down on the grass. And they could have lost another square meter of grass and had a bigger plaque with the names on, and it would have meant a lot more, I think. But at least it's there, isn't it? So I did a bit of knot magic with my hair with that.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah, buried it under the fallen leaves and stuff. But it was just it was rather sad, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, but the town's rather nice, isn't it? The town is nice, and we kind of had a good old wander around in all the little alleyways. Some bits of it reminded us of Brighton. It's like the lanes and stuff.
The lanes. Yeah, it had that. Yeah, certainly the older town where they had the old town gate, and we kind of didn't see that initially. We'd seen a different bit, so it's quite a sizable town.
It is.
But of course, when we were coming back, because we had quite a long journey to come back, we then found out exactly what had happened to a certain Mr. Hopkins.
Oh yes. That's the best bit, really, wasn't it? So what we didn't know until this point was that his assault on the witches lasted a grand total of 14 months. I'd assumed prior to our trip that it had gone on for several years, if not many years, to have, to been so prolific. Turned out to have been 14 months. And his demise came when a priest realised quite how ridiculous his accusations were, because some of them are ludicrous. They absolutely were ludicrous. And this priest started at the pulpit saying how awful things were. And finally, Matthew Hopkins got arrested on suspicion of witchcraft, and he got a dunking. And he died shortly afterwards, probably from complications of the dunking, such as pneumonia. We were jolly pleased, weren't we?
Karma.
Yeah. And as I said to Heather, I hope it bloody well hurt.
I think that would have been deserved.
Yeah.
But such a surprise, it was a short length of time, and yet there were other. But he was so efficient, if that's a better word for it, but money grabbing and didn't really care at all. No. Had no morals, no qualms.
And of course he amassed a fortune doing it, and he employed lots of people as well, obviously, but yeah, he amassed a small fortune. Not a small fortune, a fortune. Doing it in such a short amount of time. So so a lot of the history we knew, but it kind of really excuse me, it just brought it to life a bit, didn't it?
Oh yeah, really.
And it was nice to sort of feel that in some small way we were paying our respects to those, and those poor souls that were accused of these ridiculous crimes, for want of a much better word. It's just shocking, really. So
and interesting to see Essex as a whole, because there are very different landscapes within it. So that kind of the sort of outside of London area is somewhere I've never felt any affinity to, but the countryside around Manningtree and the deep countryside is rolling hills, and it's just beautiful.
It really was beautiful, wasn't it? Actually, one of the things that we noticed more than anything was how big the fields were, didn't we?
Enormous.
They're absolutely vast. So I live on the border between Surrey and Sussex, pretty much in the Surrey bit. We've got a lot of fields here. I live in one. And we've got a lot of fields here, but they're about a tenth of the size, quarter of the size maximum of the fields over there. They're just enormous, absolutely huge. So that was, and it was noticeable time after time, wasn't it? Each
yeah.
you finally drive to the next field, you know, on the road.
They were trying to get the harvest in, obviously, with the weather being as it is. So there were a lot of slow-moving vehicles on the road as well.
Yeah,
But but the fields were so vast, they were obviously not even able to get around a whole field in a day. You know,
no, not at all. Yeah, but they really were big fields, weren't they? And that struck us forcibly. Actually, there was lots of comments about, look at the size of this one.
like, you can't see the end of it.
Yeah, and you literally couldn't see the end of it. It just went on and on and on, didn't it? It was mad. So yeah, so it was an eye opener in lots of different ways, not just for the dingity dingity music on Wednesday evening. So, yes.
That was an eye opener. Oops.
So it was different. You have to clock it up to experience, don't you?
Yeah, and that's the thing with these pub stops. You know, you're stopping for free basically, so you take your chances.
Exactly. Yeah, and they were nice people, weren't they? It was just, you know, it was
all very genuine
to our taste, and they were all nice and they were friendly, and so yeah. Actually, one of the old chaps said to me when I was at the bar, and he said, what did he say? It was something along the lines of, "Are you going to get up and play?" or something like that. And I said, "Yeah, I've drum, but I'd frighten you all away." So.
Not quite in the fake style.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think they'd appreciate my style of drumming. So yeah, thrash pagans probably not their thing. Oh dear. So there we are. Well, it's gone 9 o'clock, my love. So I suppose we ought to sign off. Yes.
Indeed.
We're here next week. We're not going anywhere. Obviously, last week we were away on our travels. So yes, we're not going anywhere. So we'll be here next week. So thank you for watching. And we'll see you all next week. Have a really good one. Enjoy the waning moon. Remember to get rid of some things that you don't want anymore. And yes, we will see you next week. Ow.
Oh.
Ow. That really hurt.
What did you do?
Oh, I just broke 4 fingers. Oh! Anyway, on that note, I'm going to go and find a nice warm cloth. Oh, hi, Chris. Didn't see you there. Hello.
Hiya.
Hello. And goodbye. So we'll see you next time. Cheerio. Bye.
Bye-bye.